What's the most messed up thing someone has ever told you after barely knowing them? Well, I'm gonna go first. So in high school, I would take public transportation back home. Well, this one lady got on a bus with her daughter and sat next to me. I looked over and told her that her daughter looked very pretty. Then out of nowhere, she just starts crying. I asked, "Ma'am, are you alright?" And she says, "It's my husband." I didn't want to be invasive, but I asked, "Did something happen?" Then she goes on a 10-minute rant about how abusive her husband was and that she tried to stay for the baby. She was scared, but she finally had the courage to go. I felt bad and asked her, "Is there anything I could do to help?" And she proceeds to tell me that everything is fine. I'm like, "Are you sure?" She replies, "Yes, everything is fine. He had a peanut allergy and he died last week." And I'm like shook. And I said, "I'm so sorry for your loss." And she responds, No, it's better that he's gone anyway." And I'm like, huh? Right after, she prepares to get off the bus and she grabs her daughter. I said bye. Right before she gets off, she said she put peanuts in his food. When I was 6 years old, my family moved to Virginia because my dad had a new job opportunity. We moved to this really old house that every step that you took, you'd hear the floorboards cracking. During the summer, I met this girl named Lucy. She knocked on my door one day and asked if I wanted to play, so for weeks, me and Lucy grew closer. We'd play hopscotch, jump rope, hand games, and hide and seek. One day, we were getting ready to play hopscotch, and my mom came outside telling me to come in and eat dinner. I asked my mom if Lucy could come too. My mom had asked, "Who's Lucy?" I looked back at Lucy and I said, "She's right here." My mom replied, "Right where?" When I turned back around, Lucy disappears. I called out for Lucy, but my mom yells out, "There isn't anyone out there. Get your butt in the house. It's time to come eat." It gets a little bit paranormal after this incident, but come back for part 2 if you want to know why Lucy disappeared. This is part 2 of why my friend Lucy disappeared. A week later, after the incident happened, I saw Lucy playing outside with a little baby boy. He had to be around 2 years old. I quickly ran outside and said, "Hey, where'd you go the other day?" Lucy replied, "I wasn't feeling good, so I went home." I asked her, "Is that your baby?" And Lucy laughed and said, "No, this is my baby brother. I take care of him." And I asked again, "Don't your parents do that?" Lucy said, "No. They couldn't save us." I said, "Save?" And Lucy gets a little frustrated and said, "They just abandoned us, but we don't need them anymore. We take care of ourselves." Lucy then says, "We gotta get home. We'll see you another time." She took her brother's hand and turned the corner. I watched them go, but when I looked down the corner they turned, they both disappeared. I'm running out of time. Sorry, guys. Come back for a part 3. Story time about the old man that died in our basement. At the time, my mom was a CNA and she would do at-home care. One of the people that she took care of was one of her best friend's uncles. She would drop him off Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. He was in the 70s, he had arthritis, and was bedridden. So my mom would feed him, clean him, and change his diapers. But he was so mean. He didn't like me or my brothers and sisters. Just a little old grumpy man. But my mom would keep all her patients in the basement. By the way, which didn't look like a basement. It looked really nice, almost like a hospital type. So one day my mom needed to leave the house to go get food for the man. And she told me to watch out for her and call her if anything ever happened. So I went down there and he just stared at me the whole time. I said hello and he rolled his eyes. Couple hours pass, I'm scrolling on my phone, and his heart starts beating really fast. He looked like he was trying to cough and was reaching out for me. Everything happened so fast, I was in shock and I didn't know what to do, and he grabbed my arm. The students at the school for nursing got along quite well, except for Alice. The problem with Alice was that she was just too perfect. Well, at least that's what it seemed like to the other students. She was always friendly, always cheerful. Her assignments were always on time and just perfect. Many of the students resented Alice. They would have liked to see her fail or cry or get scared sometimes, just to show she had weaknesses just like them. One night, many of the students tried to frighten Alice as a practical joke. They borrowed the hand of a corpse they had been studying in anatomy and tied it to the light cord in her closet. And when she tried to turn her light on, she would find herself holding a dead man's hand. That would scare anyone, one of them said. Afterwards, they went to the movie theaters. When they got back, Alice was asleep. But when they didn't see her the next morning, they decided to find out what happened. They looked everywhere for Alice, and when they found her in the closet on her floor. She was sitting there staring at the hand and mumbling. Well, the joke worked, but nobody was laughing. Once there was a girl named Jenny. She was like all the other girls except for one thing. She always wore a green ribbon around her neck. There was a boy named Alfred in her class. Alfred liked Jenny, and Jenny liked Alfred. One day he asked her, "Why do you wear that ribbon all the time?" "I cannot tell you," said Jenny. But Alfred kept asking, "Why do you wear it?" And Jenny would say, "It's not important." Jenny and Alfred grew up and fell in love. One day they got married. After their wedding, Alfred said, "Now that we're married, you must tell me why you have that green ribbon." "You must wait," said Jenny. "I will tell you when the right time comes." Years passed. Alfred and Jenny grew old. One day, Jenny became very sick. The doctor told her that she was dying. Jenny called Alfred to her side and said, "Now I can tell you about the green ribbon." She told him to untie it so he could see why. And Jenny's head fell off. This story time is from a follower, and he really needs advice. By the way, we're calling him Jason, and he's 17. So Jason has been with his girlfriend for about a year and a half. The whole relationship was great, and they never had any serious problems until recently. Jason came out as bi and told Kayla, and he still wanted to be with her, but Kayla broke things off with him. She told him that she didn't want to be with a bisexual man. So after breaking all ties with him, she distanced herself, and after 2 months of being apart, Kayla says she started to feel really weird and she was sick. Come to find out, she was pregnant. But Kayla doesn't want the baby and wants to get an abortion because she doesn't want nothing to do with Jason. But Jason, on the other hand, really wants the baby. He said he knows he's young, but he's prepared. Jason feels really conflicted. He loves Kayla and wants her to do what's best for her, but he said he'll take care of the baby himself and be a single dad if he could. But guys, please give him some advice down below in the comments. When I was younger, there was a girl I knew who lived in our neighborhood. None of the kids liked her because they claimed that she stank and acted weird. When they talked about her, I kind of felt bad, so I became friends with her. Yeah, of course, I got the "why do you hang out with her?" But she really wasn't all that bad. But her scent, they were kind of right about that. One day, she invites me over to her house, and she was very excited because she told me I was the first person to ever come over. And I felt so honored, so I went. But when I went into her house, it smelled very bad, almost nauseating, but I didn't say anything because I didn't want to be rude. She had a lot of uncles that lived with her family. Honestly, it was like 4 to 5 families in one house, to be honest. But she first introduced me to her stepmom. I said hi to her, but she just stared at me in disgust. Then we went to her room to play. As it got later, I told her I needed to go home. But she begged me to stay longer because she was scared. I told her I'd come tomorrow, and she just starts crying. She runs into her bed and falls into her sheets, which lifted her skirt. There were bruises all over her thighs. Let me know if y'all want a part 2. Part 2 about the girl I know who lived in my neighborhood. So it's late and it's time for me to go home. She said she was scared and starts crying. Then she runs into her bed and flops into her sheets. Her skirt lifted and there were bruises all around her thighs. I ask her, "What happened?" She looks down and quickly pulls her skirt over her bruises. I ask, "Did someone do that to you?" And she says she can't tell me. I ask why. She responds, "If I do, they're going to hurt me." So I ran downstairs to her stepmom and told her what I saw. She sits and laughs in my face. I was so confused and asked her, "Are you going to help her?" And she tells me that little hoe can help herself and that I actually should be going home. So I went into the living room where her uncles were and told them. One of them had said, "That's why that girl don't need to be bringing random folks into the house," and runs upstairs to her room. One of the other uncles asks, "You want to get popped?" I shook my head in fear and said no. And he yells at me, telling me to go home. From there, I ran home and never came back. And after that day, she never came back outside. It's been 7 years. To this day, I wonder what happened to her. Story time on how I got robbed by my sister's boyfriend. So when school started, my sister entered 11th grade and I entered 7th. She was excited because my parents said that she was allowed to date when she got to her junior year. And immediately she got with this dude named Tony. My parents didn't know much about him, but I knew him because he would be in the neighborhood with his gang. while me and my friends were playing outside. He used to hotwire cars. He was in and out of juvie. And one time I heard he jumped a kid named Alexander because he had the newest Jordans. I was so confused on why my sister wanted him, but I ignored it. 1 to 2 months go by and Halloween comes up. So me and my friends get dressed up to get candy. I was a ghost. I know, cliche, but when you're in the hood, you gotta do what you gotta do. When we got done trick-or-treating, it was time to go home. Then, out of nowhere, a group of guys ran up on us and was trying to take our candy. So I pushed one of the guys away from us, and someone pulls a strap out on me. And it's Tony. Part 2 is coming soon. Part 2 of how I got robbed by my sister's boyfriend. Like I said, a group of guys were after us and tried to take our Halloween candy. When I pushed one of the guys away, someone pulls a strap out on me, and it's Tony. I was so scared at that moment, I literally peed my pants. I really thought that was my last day. Then he snatches the blanket off of me and was like, "Oh, so you must think you tough." And I said, "No." And he says, "Tell your boys to share. That's all we want." When we gave them our candy, they ran off with it. And me and my friends were so upset because it took us 4 hours to collect all of that candy. When I finally get back home, my sister sees me and asks, "Where's your candy and why is your pants wet?" So I tried to explain to her what happened. Then out of nowhere, Tony pops up and walks into our living room. I look at him in shock because this man literally held a GUN to my head and now he's in my house. He walks up to me and says, "Here, you can have my candy." And it's literally the same candy he stole from me earlier. And I just stared at him. My sister's like, "Take the candy, stop acting like a weirdo." When I take the candy, she hugs and kisses him and says, "That's so sweet of you."